to survive, all animals require a constant supply of oxygen. We obtain oxygen through the process of breathing. Why not respiration? A simple example is that breathing occurs through the nose through which one obtains oxygen, and respiration is a process that particularly takes place in the living cells and is engaged with energy production. In this video, we will be learning about the mechanism of breathing and associated processes. Recall that alveoli are the major site where the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide molecules takes place between blood and the tissues. How does this exchange takes place? It is through the simple diffusion. More particularly, it is based on the pressure or concentration gradient of the two surfaces. The simple diffusion of gases that happens in the body is based upon two major factors. One is the thickness of the layers through which the gases are transferred. Another factor is the solubility of gases on these membranes. It is through the breathing process that all these changes takes place. How will you define breathing then? Breathing is a process of exchange of oxygen from the atmosphere with the carbon dioxide produced by the cells. The process of breathing includes inspiration and expiration. Inspiration is the active intake of air from the atmosphere to the lungs. On the other hand, expiration is a passive expelling of air from the lungs. The movement of air in and out of the lungs is carried out by creating a pressure gradient between the lungs and the atmosphere. Here arises another question. When do this inspiration and expiration happens? Scientifically, inspiration occurs when the intrapulmonary pressure inside the lungs is lesser than the atmospheric pressure, while on the flip side, expiration occurs when the intrapulmonary pressure inside the lungs is higher than the atmospheric pressure. It is question time. Which all structures of our body are there to help in such pressure gradients? Diaphragm, intercostal muscle, that is the muscle between ribs. The abdominal muscle help in a generation of such gradients. Now, let us check the mechanism of breathing in detail. Recall that inspiration is a process by which body takes up the atmospheric air. The inspiration is caused due to the negative pressure in the lungs with respect to the atmospheric pressure. During inspiration, the diaphragm flattens and the external intercostal muscles contracts. A flattened diaphragm increases the vertical volume that is seen in the anterior-posterior axis. Another change which occurs as a result of the contraction of the external muscles is that the ribs and sternum rises. The dorsoventral axis also increases. All these changes results in the increased thoracic volume and thus a reduced thoracic pressure. This expands the lungs, which increases the pulmonary volume. Intrapulmonary pressure decreases. All these changes make the air move from outside into the lungs. During expiration, the diaphragm relaxes and the external intercostal muscles also relaxes. The thoracic regions regain their original position. The ribs and the sternum return to the normal position. So, what do we infer here? The thoracic volume and the pulmonary volume decrease, resulting in moving the carbon dioxide from the body, thus reducing the size of lungs to normal, and thoracic and abdominal muscles contract during a forceful expiration. Have you heard of a spirometer? A spirometer is an instrument that is used to estimate the volume of air involved in breathing movements. On average, a healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. We can infer that the major steps include inspiration, expiration, and a rest period in a respiration cycle. So, in the rest period, there will be some quantity of air available in the lungs. Lung volume are also known as respiratory volume. Let us now discuss various respiratory volumes. The volume of air inspired or expired during normal respiration is the tidal volume or TV. It is approximately 500 milliliters. A healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 milliliters of air per minute. Another respiratory volume is the inspiratory reserve volume or IRV. It is the additional volume of air a person can inspire by a forcible inspiration. This averages 2,500 ml to 3,000 ml. It is also known as complemental air. The next respiratory volume is the expiratory reserve volume or ERV. It is the additional volume of air a person can expire by a forcible expiration. This averages 1000 ml to 1100 ml. It is also known as supplemental air. And the residual volume is a volume of air remaining in the lungs even after forcible expiration. This averages about 1100 ml to 1200 ml. The amount of air in the lungs at different stages of the respiratory cycle can be referred to as pulmonary capacities. Let us check each of them one by one. Inspiratory capacity or IC is a total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. This includes tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume or TV plus IRV. Expiratory capacity or EC is a total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. This includes tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume or TV plus ERV. Functional residual capacity or FRC is a volume of air that will remain in the lungs after a normal expiration. This includes expiratory reserve volume and residual volume, that is ERV plus RV. Vital capacity or VC is a maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forcible expiration. Vital capacity includes expiratory reserve volume, that is ERV, plus tidal volume, that is TV, plus inspiratory reserve volume, that is IRV. Total lung capacity is a total volume of air accommodated in the lungs at the end of a forcible inspiration. Total lung capacity includes residual volume, that is RV, plus expiratory reserve volume or ERV plus tidal volume or TV plus inspiratory reserve volume or IRV. Or it can be represented by the combination of vital capacity and the residual volume. We have seen that alveoli are the structures where gases are exchanged. Here we will learn one new term, and that is partial pressure. What is meant by partial pressure? The pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases is termed as partial pressure. It is one of the factors which influence the gaseous exchange. Now, can you recall the other factors? The solubility of gases, the thickness of membrane, and the surface area of lungs are the other factors that influences the gaseous exchange. Partial pressure is represented as PO2 for oxygen and PCO2 for carbon dioxide. The partial pressure of oxygen in the alveoli is more, that is 104 mmHg, than that of the blood capillaries, that is 40 mmHg. What happens here? The oxygen diffuses into the capillary blood. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood is more, that is 45 mmHg, than that of the alveolus, that is 40 mmHg. Hence, here the carbon dioxide diffuses to the alveolus. The next factor is the solubility of gases. The solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times higher than that of oxygen. The amount of carbon dioxide that can diffuse to the diffusion membrane per unit difference in partial pressure is much higher compared to that of oxygen. Another factor is the thickness of the diffusion membrane. This membrane is made up of 3 layers. The thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, the endothelium of the alveolar capillaries, and the basement substance in between them. What is the thickness? The total thickness of the diffusion membrane is much less than a millimeter, which makes the gaseous exchange easier and more effective. The surface area of the lungs is another key factor which influences the gaseous exchange. The presence of alveoli increases the surface area of the lungs, which further increases the gaseous transfer. We have seen the exchange of gases through membranes. But my question is, how are they transported to other parts of the body? Let us check the transport of oxygen first. Oxygen transport mainly takes place from the lungs to the body tissues through blood plasma or oxyhemoglobin. 3% of oxygen is carried by dissolving plasma, and the rest 97% of oxygen is transported as hemoglobin. Let us learn more about hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a red-colored iron-containing pigment present in the red blood cells. Oxygen can bind with hemoglobin in the reversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin, and this is known as oxygenation. As you can see on the screen, one hemoglobin molecule has 4 heme units. What does this infer? One heme molecule can carry 4 oxygen molecules. Let us check a few factors which can interfere with this binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. One is the partial pressure of oxygen and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Another factor is the hydrogen ion concentration, and other factor is the temperature. Now, it's the time to study about the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. This is a sigmoid curve and it is obtained when the percentage or oxygen saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against the partial pressure of oxygen. This graph is used to learn more about the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, etc. Let us check the detailing for the formation of oxyhemoglobin in the alveoli and in the tissues. In alveoli, the partial pressure of oxygen is high. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low. And there is a low hydrogen ion concentration and a lower temperature. Thus, these factors make favorable condition for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. In the case of tissues, the partial pressure of oxygen is low and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high, along with the higher hydrogen ion concentration and a higher temperature. Hence, oxyhemoglobin dissociates and releases oxygen molecules. Every 100 milliliters of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 milliliters of oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. It's time to learn about the transport of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is mainly transported from tissues back to the lungs. In 3 forms, this molecule is transported. 93% diffuses in the red blood cells and 7% is dissolved in plasma. Or if we check in deep, we will find that carbon dioxide molecules are transported as bicarbonates, that is 70%. They are transported by red blood cells as carbaminohemoglobin, that is nearly 20 to 25%. The third form is as carbonic acid, which is 7%. How does the carbon dioxide is transported as carbonic acid? Let's have a look. Carbon dioxide from the tissues and water of plasma combines and form carbonic acid. In tissue, 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide binds to the hemoglobin to form carbaminohemoglobin. In alveoli, the carbon dioxide dissociates from the carbaminohemoglobin. How does the transport of carbon dioxide in the form of bicarbonate ions takes place? A major part of carbon dioxide, that is nearly 70% of carbon dioxide, is transported by this form. Carbon dioxide from the blood tissue and water from the blood capillary combines and form carbonic acid, that is H2CO3, in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Then at the tissue site, this carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme, bicarbonate is formed along with hydrogen ions. In alveoli, the reverse of this reaction happens to lead to the formation of carbon dioxide and water molecules. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. So far, we have seen the mechanism of breathing along with the exchange and transport of gases. Does this breathing process have any kind of regulatory center in our body? We shall discuss it in the next video. Now, let's summarize what we have learned.
Manorama Horizon. Learning made simple.